Good evening, Grand Rapids Montessori families. It looks like it's kind of slowed down with people joining in, so we're going to get started. Thank you for joining us tonight to hear about the bond project and what will be happening at Grand Rapids Montessori. I am going to turn this over to Mr. John Hemholt, who's going to introduce some of our presenters.
Salad. And they have a ton of different salads. You never know what it is.
If you could mute, if you're not on mute, that would be helpful.
But this, there was
Well, good evening, everyone. We're going to ask everyone to kindly put your mute button on. We're hearing some background noise. Lynn Ritzema, if you're still on, I don't know if you have the ability to just automatically mute everyone as the host. All right. Great. Well, thank you, everyone. My name is John Helmholt. I head up communications and external affairs for the district. I know with us here tonight is Long Nguyen from our facilities department. I believe Matthew Beresford, who's the executive director, is on here somewhere. And then Ted Lott from Lot 3 Mets, who has been working with the district for years, played a key role in the development of the renovations at the Museum High School. We're here tonight to share information about the overall investment of the bond dollars for the Innovation Central Grand Rapids Montessori campus. One thing to kind of level set expectations, we're as a district, we've actually put almost additional $4 to $5 million than what was originally planned to address the rising costs of construction, the inflationary costs of construction materials and supplies. And so I just want to assure you, we're doing everything we can to stretch these bond dollars as far as they can go. You will see that the vast majority of the investment is in the HVAC, air conditioning and heating for both buildings, which is the primary investment for the fountain building for Grand Rapids Montessori. In addition to air conditioning and the updated HVAC system, H Classroom will be getting $10,000 in new classroom technology. That is because we're leveraging monies beyond just the bond dollars to include the federal ESSER funds. That will also include about $300,000 in investment in the playground at the Fountain Montessori building as well. So you will see the vast majority, as I said before, is in HVAC and in the Innovation Central building. You might recall from the 2015 bond, our high schools were a primary focus, but I also want to assure you that Mr. Beresford, myself, we are advocating to do more. We met with the staff members earlier this week and had heard that their priority would be new carpet, paint, as well as the windows. And so I just want you to know that we are in active conversations. This is something we are still wrapping up some of the bids. So what you're seeing now is estimated, and we will know more about what additional dollars may be available and how we may be able to leverage unspent bond money, possibly reallocating funds for the federal ESSER funds and some other creative way to invest in this school. But want to introduce Ted Lott, Lot 3 Mets. He will walk through a PowerPoint presentation. And then if you have questions, you can wait till the end or feel free to post them in the chat and we will respond accordingly. So Ted.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to share my screen. I've got some images to run through. My intent is to kind of give you a broad overview of what we've been working on and what we will be working on during construction here for the next couple of years. And then to give you an idea about kind of timeframes in the project as well. So John and I are kind of in the midst of a number of discussions similar to this, including the neighborhood and the city of Grand Rapids and staff and GRPS folks. Conversations are ongoing, and I should say if you have other questions after this, we'd be happy to do our best to try to answer them for you as well as time goes by. But as John said, we've got a lot of work to do, and we're working very hard to make sure that we're spending these dollars as best we possibly can in this process. So John mentioned that we were one of the architects who worked on the museum school, and I'm happy to say that the design team is from that project is working on this one as well. So our partners at Kingscott are proficient K through 12 architects, and our expertise at La3 Metz is primarily on the community and historic preservation side. So this is a project that's important to us as neighborhood residents and GRPS parents ourselves. So we're very happy and proud to be able to work on this with you. Whenever we start a project like this, with a building of this vintage and this importance in the community, we always start it with research. And we're lucky that a building like this has been owned by GRPS, was built by GRPS in 1919 or whatever it was. So lots of really great things exist for us to look at and for us to refer to as far as restoration goes. Images like this, and then we're fortunate as well to have things like this, which are the original drawings of the school, which are amazing to see for people like me, and then drawings like this, which are it's literally a Christmas morning kind of thing when we find a drawing like this, just to be able to understand how somebody 100 years ago did the work that we're trying to do today. GRPS has all of these drawings sitting over its facilities department. And so it's been a very interesting and informative excavation of some of this stuff as we've moved through. As John said, we're actively working on the project. We're sending this out for contractor bids and pieces. And some of the work I'm going to show you here are things that we've been working on with the facilities department in Long for the past 8 months as part of this project. Trying to make sure that we're again getting the best we can out of these dollars and doing the best work we can. John mentioned that the majority of this project is in things that you won't be able to see at the end of the day, but hopefully things that you will be able to feel when you're in the classrooms or when your children are in the classrooms moving forward. I'm going to show you some of the things that you will see, and probably the biggest one of those. There's two kind of large functions in that, and they're both related to deferred maintenance and ongoing problems in water that Innovation Central has. So I include this drawing primarily just to say that there's lots of little things, all these little arrows and tags relate to things that need to be repaired on the roof and at the top of Innovation Central. Because if you go up there, you would visually notice, anybody would notice that roof isn't right up there. It extends down into the other major portion of this, which is replacing all the windows on Innovation Central that were partially closed in the 70s or 80s. I don't know exactly when that happened, but we're bringing the building back to what it was in a historically appropriate way. We're fortunate, or it's interesting to somebody like me, that when you look at the original drawings a building of this vintage typically had a much more complicated window pattern than what you're seeing here. This is very simple for the time. And it actually is beneficial to us today. It makes it much easier for us to be able to replicate these windows in an appropriate way today. So we're fortunate in that respect, and we're really happy that we're going to be able to get this building back to what it was in that respect. So there's 300 some odd windows on this building that we're replacing as part of this project. So it's a major effort just in the fact that we're taking out these windows and putting new ones in. And I include this drawing just so you kind of get the idea. I'm sure you've all seen this before, but kind of seeing the proposed and the existing conditions right next to each other, I hope give you a little idea about how the interior of that building is going to be drastically affected in a beautiful way, I think. So I mentioned some of the roofing, and I include this just so you kind of understand the scope of the repairs and maintenance that needs to be done on the building. There's lots of little things, everything from bricks and joints on that building that are struggling, to lintels, to terracotta work and stone work that needs to be patched and repaired on that building. And you see lots of conditions like this where you know, not just inappropriately, but inartfully, leaks were attempted to be stopped at terracotta caps and at finials and such like this. We're going to be getting into all of that and repairing all of that appropriately. The windows, as I discussed, these are, you know, nerdy drawings that we show to contractors so they understand how we want the thing to look in the future. Then the entries as well that we'll be working on for the building as well, trying to get those put back together again as well. So John and I both mentioned the HVAC systems for both buildings, and I include this drawing primarily to understand the scope of the building. I know you guys are Montessori parents and potentially will have kids studying in this building either soon or very soon. But underneath the auditorium and the stage of this building is just kind of a series of big rooms. They're largely vacant and largely underused, but they're shocking kind of as to how big they are and what they were full of previously. And in a little bit of an archaeology dig, there's, you know, you'll find all sorts of strange things down there that I don't know what they did in previous for the previous building, but it's a huge space underneath the seating of the auditorium. And I should step back. This drawing is a building section. It's a drawing that we use to cut through the building so you can kind of see how the floors stack on top of each other, as opposed to a floor plan that you're normally used to seeing about where all the rooms are around the hallways. This is kind of cut the other way, north-south, through the big room of the auditorium. But underneath here is all of this open space that's you know, used to be filled with things. And I am constantly surprised at how much equipment that is going to be required to be able to heat and cool these buildings. We're going to be filling that space up with air handlers and boilers and all sorts of things that you'll never see, but are very, very large and will pump the air up through chases into the building and heat and cool the space. And we'll look at a similar drawing for Montessori here in a moment, but this is primarily just so you understand that there's a ton of equipment that's required to be able to heat and cool these spaces in old buildings like this. And it's a pretty cool drawing. Additionally, at Innovation Central, we'll be working on some finishes as well, modifying some toilets, but that's a relatively minor part of the project. This is a little bit of a site plan and aerial drawing of the Montessori building, or the Fountain School. College is here running north-south on the right of the drawing, and you can see Lion Street labeled here. The difference between kind of the two projects, how we're approaching them from an equipment and heating and cooling standpoint, is that instead of, you know, having this huge space in the basement, which we don't have at Montessori, we're going to be locating these heating and cooling equipment on top of the roof. So all of the equipment, or the majority of the equipment, the major air handlers, are going to be located on the roof of the Montessori building, primarily to save space as much as anything else. And here's a similar drawing, similar section drawing of the Montessori building, which we'll be showing to our friends at the neighborhood and also at the city, so they understand kind of the scope and how tall and big these pieces of equipment are sitting on the building, and to assure them that they're not going to be seen from the street from majority of places. You may be able to see a little bit of this one sitting on the gym from line, but the ones on the higher portion of the building you won't be able to see. Then we're going to be feeding down from those units into the attic space. And this is a drawing of the attic space, just showing all the ductwork. And that attic space at Montessori is about 5 feet tall, and it's full of kind of wood trusses, old wood hand-built trusses that were built as part of the project. And all of this ductwork is going to run through the open webs of the attic space. So this is going to be a very complex kind of puzzle that they're going to be putting together during construction of this project. And again, it's something you'll never see when it's finished, or even while it's under construction, but it is the major guts of the work we'll be doing at the Montessori project. We'll be then coming down through chase spaces, either existing or newly created, into all the classrooms to provide heating and cooling to all the classrooms in the building. Then just to speak about construction, and this is a little overly complex and not necessarily important, but to kind of jump to the end here, we're going to be starting construction in May on things like the windows on Innovation Central, and the total construction of the project is going to run until January of 2024. So we have, a good 20 months of construction that we're coming up on. And as I understand it at the moment, the majority of the work on the Montessori building will be taking place during the summer of 23 to minimize interruptions for Montessori teaching. So the hope is that we'll be impacting the day-to-day function very, very minimally during the school year. So that is a very quick overview of everything we've been working on for the past eight months. And I wanted to be respectful of your time, but I also wanted to try to give you a good understanding of what we're up to and what we're doing. So with that, I'll open it up to questions, and John and Long and I will do our best to answer them.
Ted, I'm going to start going through. If we could just ask, there's everyone to please mute. There's a little background noise. Alexa is asking, how much money is there to work with after HVAC, air, and playground are covered? Long or Ted, do you want to?
Nothing really. We allocated all the money that we had.
So of the $27 million, correct me if I'm wrong, more than half is for covering the HVAC for the two buildings.
Yep.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
The vast majority.
Pretty much. Yep. Yep.
Okay. Alexa, the playground is, ballpark 300,000. And then as I said, the technology, you're about 10,000 per classroom. Let me scroll up here. Linnell, I heard carpet and paint mentioned. I would love to see that included and update the vintage carpet. The whole of the environment is part of the Montessori way. And we are very cognizant of this. I have been a long-standing advocate for our Montessori programs for both stability and growth over the years. We know that this has been a priority. And again, I want to assure you that our CFO, our facilities team, we are looking to squeeze as much out of the turnip and stretch this $27 million as far as we can get it. In an ideal scenario, that may allow us to do carpet, paint, and hopefully some other things. But right now, the primary focus is on the HVAC system. But know that that is a top priority. We heard that clearly from the staff at the meeting earlier this week. So it is on our list. We are going to continue to crunch the numbers to see what more we can squeeze in. Laura says, wow, this will look beautiful with the new windows. They did this to the old Eastern Elementary when they turned it in apartments, and looks amazing. And I would just know, I mean, if you saw the rendering, doesn't even do it justice for what this is good. The building's going to look like with historically restored windows. We're excited about it. That's why the Heritage Hill Neighborhood Association has already endorsed this entire investment, and are advocating to the Historic Preservation Commission for just their position on it. Denave, good to see you. Yes, the entire building would be getting a facelift. Alexa, secure entrance added that goes along with the architecture is needed. Ted, you want to talk? First of all, we are looking to do a new secure entryway in the parking lot off of Prospect for the entrance to the Innovation Central building. That it will displace some of the Montessori classrooms. We are working with Principal Reed and with Dr. McGee and our facilities team to try to minimize that any kind of displacement. But that's, as part of this, as you all know, there really is not a secure entryway to either one of these buildings. The challenge with the Fountain building, and that is another one of our priorities as a district, is in an ideal scenario with the funding that's available, we would need a new secure entryway, but that also requires ADA and a new elevator. And I don't know if Ted or Long, if you want to comment a little bit more about that.
We just didn't have the fundings to allocate for that to be in the future bond if we ever get one.
So I want to emphasize, so we are already exploring a no new tax bond, which would give us the ability to go and ask the voters for approval of essentially the same bond that was approved in 2015, but because a previous bond is essentially paid off and some other debt service is either reducing or paid off, that would give us the ability to essentially extend that bond, raise more bond money without increasing taxes. These bonds across the state of Michigan have had a 95% approval rating, if not more than that. And I know that, as you all know, we're going through our strategic planning process right now. Once we finalize the strategic plan, one of the focus areas is going to be around looking at our facilities. How do we further improve the facilities to best meet the needs of our students? There continues to be active conversation, and we've heard it from parents and staff and the school leaders about wanting to have potentially a standalone Grand Rapids Montessori site that would all be together. That is on it. That's something that is being discussed, but that would require a new bond. And just want to assure you, we want the same things. When we did the estimates for this project originally, which was in 2014, before we took it to the voters in 2015, that dollar went a lot further then than it does now because of inflation. And as I said, hopefully by the district is already demonstrating our commitment, because we increased the amount of bond money that was then what was originally planned. We've increased ESSER funds to cover that playground and the technology equipment. So hopefully that's a demonstrated commitment. It doesn't stop there. We just have to look at what alternatives, what other options may be, so that we can fulfill more of what we know individuals want. Jake says, I agree with a secure entrance. Laura, I'm wondering if any of the renovations will allow for an expansion. So that you might all remember, and if you have not seen it, you can Google the GR Forward Master Plan. That was actually something that was done with Downtown Grand Rapids Inc. And we were successful in getting a chapter dedicated to K-12 education. And among other things, this led to a visioning site plan that was really everyone's putting bells and whistles that if money wasn't an option and we could dream big, what would that be? And as part of that, Ted Lott actually worked on that, so he can share a little bit. But at one point, there was the opportunity to connect the two buildings in this site plan that would allow for potential expansion. So while we're not able to realize that vision entirely with this bond investment, these bond investments, I want you to know that that is not just collecting dust on the shelf. We were heard recently from Heritage Hill that would like to make some park improvements. Included in that original vision site plan was an outdoor amphitheater and classroom that could be used by the neighborhood and by the school. So just know we have not lost sight of that. We're trying to make what we can work with the dollars that we have. Leslie is asking, is the ADA compliance of the building being addressed, entry and overall accessibility? For the fountain building, no, not at this time. That is what I was referencing a little bit earlier, that if we were to do a secure entryway, there is no real ground floor entrance, if you will. The way that building is stacked, you're going up the stairs or down the stairs. And so, and there also, unfortunately, is not the funding to do that right now. That's where we are looking at what we could do with this future bond and or other considerations. Jake likes the playground. Kids love it. Interior's gross and needs TLC. We hear you, Jake. And that's why we've said that our top priority, if we can squeeze the dollars, would be at minimum carpet and paint. Thank you, Linnell. Alexa, will I wait? I'm not sure if I quite will iWave C air purifiers be added? Long or Ted, you want to talk a little bit about the HVAC system and its compliance with air purification requirements?
All yours, Ted. Chime in.
The major improvement with the new heating and cooling is, and certainly whenever we design a building these days, pandemic or not, there are much more stringent and heavy requirements for outdoor air coming into the building, as everybody understands through research that fresh air is very, very important to overall health. So what is happening as part of this is that fresh air is a much higher quantity of fresh air is being brought into the building than previously was, certainly. And we're designing it beyond kind of the baseline code as well to make sure that we have proper ventilation through the building. Additionally, there are units included in this that are called energy recovery units, which have filters and filter the air additionally. So when it's coming in, it's being filtered and conditioned and then brought into the spaces. So that's I'm not a mechanical engineer, but that's kind of the broad overview about how we're approaching that in both buildings. We spent a lot of time on this project in the summer working on that fresh air component because we know it's an important health factor for us, right now, especially right now. But it has been, we've learned over the years that it's critical. So that's a major improvement. Again, a thing you won't see, but it'll be a healthier environment.
I turned my camera off for a second because I'm searching for a text message and I am using my phone as my camera. So there's a question about what specific technology. All classrooms at the Fountain Building will receive new, brighter laser, no lamps to fail projectors, interactive touch whiteboards, document cameras, audio enhancement systems, wireless presentation system, classroom cameras. It's approximately 10,000 per room for every room, every classroom in the 2 buildings. We'll be bidding this out now, and the work starts this spring to summer. So Michaela, I hope that answers your question. There was another question about ADA advocacy for ADA compliance, and I know we've addressed that. So Greg is asking, how will this new HVAC be designed with future viral or bacterial spread in the future, seeing as these buildings have now been through several major pandemics? Ted, I think you kind of addressed it. I mean, that's something that, you know, the CDC put guidance out about air quality. This is actually one of the reasons why we're prioritizing this HVAC investment. And we will ensure that it's aligned with standards. And I don't know if Ted or Long, you want to add anything more?
No, we're going, we're going beyond the code and providing fresh air in this building, and that's the critical issue.
Yep. Tony was asking about the timeline for the potential separate K-12 Montessori building. Would it be prudent to wait? We see this entire campus as a significant asset, and we see this as really an investment in our assets. As a long-term investment. It's not long, it's not short-term, and has the potential for future use. So at this point, we do not have plans to scale back. This project is moving, and if we want to keep the rates kind of where they're at, hopefully before inflation goes up further, we're trying to lock those in now. Advocacy, again, about ADA and Montessori being a very attractive program. And yes, we know that. That's why we're investing in it. That's why we invested in the other facilities as well. And I think you will see continued investment now moving forward. Alexa is asking any possibility for library improvements. Carrie, I don't know if you have heard yet about the ESSER funds that we are putting into some of the library books. I don't believe that includes renovations to the library itself, but it might include some, and I just have not heard the details. Have you heard anything yet?
There has not been any talk about renovations to the library at this time.
Okay. So Alexa, I will follow up to kind of find out where that is. And are we just talking new books and materials, or is there potential funding that might lead to some minimal improvements? Dave Riley's asking, do we know how much our Montessori teachers will use all that technology? I defer to Carrie Reed for that.
So that is new information that just recently came out about the technology. So we are working through that in our building. Teachers did just receive the new cameras, and they have been using them. Some of them have already put them up and are using them. And a lot of it will support doing more presentations through Zoom, where the students can be a little bit more interactive with speakers or presenters. So a lot of the teachers are excited about that part.
Sarah's asking, since a great deal of the work is being done while students are present, what will be done to mitigate asbestos exposure?
So there is no plan to do work when kids or students are present. Summer for the Montessori school, it's going to be between the 2 summers. We might deal with some of the asbestos in one summer and then do the rest of the HVAC stuff in the next summer. Same thing with Innovation Central. We're going to have it phased out, so students are going to be out of the spaces that we're going to work on.
I just want to emphasize we're hypersensitive to this for obvious reasons, and our team is fully committed to ensuring we're in full compliance and do everything we can to make sure that as we do this construction, we're going to do it in the safest possible manner with a strong sensitivity toward that asbestos abatement. Manal, just to follow up on tech, have the teachers and Ms. Reed been consulted? Because what I've seen of how classroom works, sometimes something like a digital whiteboard isn't going to enhance a Montessori education. I'm going to defer back to Carrie, and if there are, I would just add that if there are different or other needs that Montessori may have, that Craig Reeb is someone who is very open to feedback and is very creative in how we invest our technology dollars.
Yes, and as I said, it's the technology piece we just learned of it. So that's something that we are just working together to figure out what will be best used in our classrooms.
Yep. Tony had a follow-up, I understand. So improvements to the fountain building will not be a reason for not considering an alternative space for the Grand Rapids Montessori. And that's correct, Tony. Like this, I'd say everything's on the board. You know, we are a large system with a lot of buildings, and we need to really look systematically. That's why our superintendent, Dr. Roby, has been very clear that we need to have a strategic plan first and foremost, outline what we believe is needed for the next 3 to 5 years to meet the academic, social, emotional needs of our students, to support our teachers and support staff and school leaders. And from there, we then begin to look at our assets, our facilities, and how we might be able to further strengthen, improve, expand, create new. And so we are that will be coming, but we're talking probably 1 to 3 years before, as part of that conversation. Our hope is to begin some of that as early as this summer, but really the priority is really finalizing the strategic plan, which the strategic plan initiatives will be finalized by February 7th. So we're getting close. By the end of April, this strategic plan should be final. I know the Grand Rapids Board of Education, who has many advocates for Montessori, have indicated they want to begin that conversation as soon as possible. Jamie, continued concerns about the accessibility issues in the building. We certainly understand and are aware. And again, as I said before, this is something that we really are looking to prioritize. We're trying to do it within the budgets that's been dealt to us for right now.
Mm-hmm.
Question from Mel. Is the ADA piece something parents, community, local organization could help with, either funding, grant writing, or sponsorship?
Was he in your class?
Ted and Long, I have no idea what that projected cost is. You know, I would just simply comment that if you think about what we did with the Building Together campaign, which was what raised $14.5 million, 10 million of which renovated the museum high school building. So it is not out of the realm that a capital campaign could be something on.
Don't eat that.
We're getting a little bit of background noise. If you could please hit your mute button.
Oh, no.
As much as I love to hear the young one's voice in the background, can you please hit your mute button?
No.
So Mel, the answer is that is something that could absolutely be on the table. And I think we need to explore all options. I think one of the things that is a challenge, we need to look at it from an equity lens. That's something that if you've seen the strategic plan draft and kind of where we're coming from, that we have pretty significant inequities throughout the district, and investments from neighborhood schools to theme schools to older facilities, newer facilities, and just want to emphasize Dr. Roby and the board are very sensitive to this. And so anything we may do with the GRPS Foundation or from a private fundraising campaign, we would need to do so through an equity lens and really engage our stakeholders to make sure we were doing it right. We did get some feedback from that previous campaign that in hindsight, we might have changed the decision to go forward with that campaign. So, but I do want to uplift your comment because we're fortunate. You have one of the most active PTAs in all of our schools, the Montessori Advisory Council, which I served on for many years, has been a great advocate. So as we move through this project and we have a better idea of what the numbers are ultimately going to land on, we'll know a lot more of what flexibility we have short term, and that will also feed into kind of what our long-term plans will look like. That is the last of the questions that I'm seeing right now. If you have any follow-up questions or concerns, excuse me, comments, please feel free to email Ms. Reed directly. Most of you, I think, probably have my email, so you can always email me. And we will do our best. Is there an estimate on costs for chair lifts?
So we just installed a chair lift over the last week, and staff are being trained on it in the coming week. So we do have a chair lift for students who are in need of that support for emergency exits.
Sensitive to your time. I know we, in part hijacked one of your parent meetings that was pre-established. So Ms. Reed, I'm not sure if you have much more on the agenda, but is there anything else you'd like from Long, Ted, and I, or how would you like to proceed?
I think that is it. And I just want to say thank you to all the parents who are here tonight. And if anyone has any questions, any suggestions that they want to share, please feel free to email me and I will add them to our notes I was taking tonight. So please feel free to send me an email if you have other questions for us.
Great. And I just want to echo what Ms. Reed said. Thank you all for your advocacy, for making GRPS your choice, for listening, understanding, your patience and everything. We are really, this is something we're all working toward together. I think we share a common vision for and support for our Montessori programming, and we're going to continue to do what we can to strengthen and improve our programs. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.